your school research, it's very important to figure out a school fit with respect to what your career aspirations are, just to begin the research first. And after that, of course, you go deeper into understanding whether you're a culture fit for a particular school or not, whether you like the curriculum of the school or not, how do you vibe with the network of that particular school or not. So that's about, when you are preliminarily starting to talk about, okay, which schools are making sense to me and which are not, because there are so many schools in a certain geography. Of course, Europe has still handfuls, so it's easier for you to navigate through those schools. But
Yeah.
yeah, when it comes to US, so there's like T15, T20, which ones of the M7s are the best fit. And let's say if you just have 2 to 3 months at hand, you can barely only apply to 4 to 5 schools. You can't go beyond that, because then you'll be compromising with the quality of your applications. So whatever time that we have at hand, as I can see some of you targeting round 2, most of the deadlines for European schools are going to be in November. So basically, we're just 15 weeks away to the deadlines. So looking at the workload that you have between US and European schools, it's slightly different. It takes almost 2 times the time to pull off a very good application for European schools
Yeah.
versus US schools. So yes, in this 15 weeks, if you, of course, weekends, basically, if you want to divide it by, like 5 weekends per school, you can really pull off a very good application. So maybe you can do 3 to 4 applications for European schools for November, and then maybe you can do 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 applications for US schools if you're applying to mixed bag. This is just to help you get a sense check of the timeline that you're running at. Now, this also depends on whether or not you have a GMAT score or a GRE score. If you're still working on your GRE GMAT score right now, then potentially you should start preparing for the applications basis, the mock test scores that you're getting. If you are not ready yet with your mock scores, then I would really push for you to have a very strong, at least average of whatever, depending on whatever schools you're targeting, average of those schools by the end of September, so that you can get started on your applications by first week of October. All right, now coming back to the topic as we are discussing, I know Ishwar has a question again. So I think Isha has kind of already touched upon that. But Isha, do you want to elaborate on Ishwar's question first before we jump onto the agenda of the session? Is there a reason why you preferred the European programs over US programs? Do you want to?
Yeah, so one was very personal reason because few of my relatives and very close friends stay there. So, I have always like this is very personal to me, and you can make your choices. But I have always stayed in India with my family, like whether be it work, be it my undergraduate degree. So I just wanted to shift, and Europe seemed more like a safer option compared to the US. And I just it's just more fancy life in the Europe versus the US. So um and it depends on your goals. My goals are combination of marketing and consulting, so that's why the US. Sorry, that's why Europe. But if your goal is tech, more focused towards tech or consulting, I would say the US.
All right,
But
absolutely.
both the
So,
geographies offer good opportunities. So it depends which geography you're more comfortable working in. Like
yeah.
I have worked with like people, like I have been working at Bain& Company for the last 4.5+ years. So I work with both people from both the geographies, and I just feel that I'm more comfortable working there, the Europe.
Yep. All right. So just to elaborate on that question, Ishwar, a little bit, and if others also have that question, what Isha has answered, that's a very genuine and an honest answer. A lot of times, your personal aspirations may overpower what you, of
Yeah.
course, want to get immediately out of an MBA. And the personal aspiration is also something which is, in the longer term of things, make more sense. Like, where do you see yourself living? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? Of course, if money is your aspiration, I'll be honest, and of course we are getting recorded here, for the same role, let's say you're a management consultant with Bain and you're a management consultant with Bain in Chicago versus in London, you are going to be making 1.8 times more salary. But yes, go talk to peers or folks from both the parts of the world and try to make a choice for yourself. Is it something that's for you, or is it something like you'd prefer a more better work-life balance so that you can also devote your time and hours to something else? So it's a very personal choice that people make. Sometimes people, of course, choose to move to a certain geography because of their partners are in certain part of the geography, or they're well settled somewhere else, or like family, work life balance, ROI, because most of the European programs are going to be 1 year MBA program. So let's say if
Yeah.
you're going for a second MBA, or if you're going for an MBA where you've had more number of years of experience, you'd potentially want to not go for an MBA for 2 years. So then your options are in the US are only limited to 2 to 3 schools, while in Europe you have more schools that offer 12 to 16 months of education.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Yeah, do you want to chime in, Isha?
Yeah, same. I think even like side business school, they offer 1 year MBA, and it's just a quicker option to get a degree and then, work where your YMBA suits.
Absolutely. All right. So RJ is asking, we'll come back to your question, RJ, really soon. We have a couple of questions which touch upon the topic of discussion today. So for 30 minutes, we can talk about the topic. And then the last 15 minutes or 20 minutes we can keep for all of us. So the topic is why the MBA and the answers to that. So we'll try to stick to that. So any questions that are coming to that for that, please feel free to drop them or raise your hands and unmute yourself. We'd be happy to have you unmute yourself. I'm just picking up for the first question. What should you focus on when writing a strong why MBA essay? Isha, any points that you'd like to share with the audience today? Because I'm sure you would have answered that for yourself when you were
Yeah.
introspecting and all of that. So, yeah.
So firstly, I think storylining really helps, and that's where my consultant Shivani from Email Beyond helped a lot. Because if your story, like basically your degree, your skills, your hobbies, and like very largely your work experience do not align with your YMBA goals, like there should be, very strong connection between all these things before MBA and post MBA. And I was able, so my post MBA goal was to get into consulting only, but a more generalist role. I have been working in TMT for the last 4.5 years, and that's why I showed that yeah, I have experience. So I have two options: either I can go as a product manager, or I can go to front end, like work with the likes of MBB, because I've already have that experience. But like I would really like to thank my consultant because she really helped me, create that story. Everyone has some parts of the story, but it's like collecting all those dots.
Yeah.
Consulting really helped for me.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, just to answer, I mean, just to elaborate on what Isha was talking about. So one, like I started with this topic that there's going to be a real answer and there's going to be an answer that's going to convince the adcoms, yes, you have hacked it. You have those gaps in your profile and you know it precisely, and you need an MBA, and of course you should come in to the school, and we're going to be proud of you because we're going to help you bridge your gaps. So you have to make the adcoms feel that. Now, what goes into that? I know primary reasons why MBA, why you're potentially going for an MBA, and you can drop your answers like as honest as possible to make more money. You want to be a management consultant, you want to switch your domain, you want to switch your function, you want to switch your country, you want to switch your industry. These are some of the top reasons why people go for an MBA, because otherwise it becomes hard, once you've been in a certain industry or when you've been in a certain space to pivot. And potentially you're looking to pivot right now, like you've been in a space for 4 to 5 years, or maybe 7, or maybe 10 or 15 years, and now you don't know how to get about, switching, because everybody's like, oh, you have a certain experience, so we're only going to promote you in a certain function. So primary reason why people do that is because of domain industry function switch, or a geography switch. And of course, as a byproduct of it, you end up making more money. But of course, you have to be mindful, you're also investing a lot of money. So one of the first questions that MBA and Beyond actually asks you to answer, why do you want to put in so much of money into an MBA? So whenever you're trying to dig into the real answers for why MBA, it's very important for you to understand the ROI aspect of it. Do not undermine the fact that, okay, you are going to be putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros into an MBA degree. You have to do the math. How much money are you going to be making a year or a year and a half after? If the math is making sense to you, not in just an immediate after post MBA goal, but with respect to, where you see yourself in the next 3 to 4 years. Because you might just come back to me and ask that, hey, I'll be paying so much loan and I'll be paying so much taxes. Where is the math? I'm barely making any profit. Yes, you could potentially not be making any big profits for the next 2.5 years after graduating, but the effects or the impact of an MBA in your life is way long term than that. It's the network, it's the human capital that you're investing in. Sometimes people are as honest as possible that I have a very big skill gap in my profile, and I only want to go to a business school for a peer to peer learning so that I can learn from others how they were able to bridge those gaps. And I want to build a massive network at a business school. So it can be as honest and as unique to you as possible. An entrepreneur can go and say that, hey, I've been trying to build a startup for 4.5 years, and I've been to raise capital, been able to raise capital enough times, but I have not been able to scale. So I'm going to a business school to learn all the frameworks that are possible for me to learn, to expand my business from India to other Southeast Asian or Asian geographies, and maybe even take it to Europe. So a reason can be very personal to you, but the most important way to approach this is to identify a very specific gap in your profile that only and only an MBA can help you bridge. Now, you may go about reading a lot of samples on the internet. You can ask ChatGPT to create a gap for you. All of this is going to come across or come around very generic. It's very important that you try to create a soft mix of your professional life and your personal life both, and you're not just heavily only dependent on your professional journey so far. Because a business school is also not just fit with respect to your professional life, but also your personal life. So try to dig into your skill and your personality gaps that an MBA can really help you bridge, and that makes up for a very good answer for why MBA. And yes, it requires some introspection. All right, any question?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some questions. Isha, do you want to chime in before I jump on to the next questions that I see? Yeah.
No, I think I completely agree. They really want to see that you are empathetic and you have a personality beyond working 9 to 10 hours at some company. So they want
Yeah.
to see what else you are doing apart from just working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just to add on what Isha is saying, the schools really care about how employable you are going to be. So whenever, like you're putting your answers, so I never really see, one part of your application separate from the other. I see that your strengths, your weaknesses, your YMBA and your post MBA goals, they are all interlinked. While, of course, we are only focusing on YMBA today, but what your post MBA goals are, if you reverse engineer it, a YMBA will fit in there somewhere. What your weaknesses are, a YMBA will fit in there somewhere. What your strengths are will somehow link to your post MBA goals. So they all have to, build a matrix that is making a complete sense to a business school and making them confident about the fact that okay, this person we're going to take in is going to be 100% employable, because they care about nothing else but their employment report. And I'm being very honest here. So Ravi is asking a question and he's a veteran. So while I have my own reasons to do an MBA, and of course we all have, like we said, but what's plausible to a business school, that's what matters here. What do you think will be a logical and more gullible reason for an Indian Army veteran to do an MBA while enhance my candidature? I'm going to talk about a very real example of one of our consultants who graduated from MIT Sloan and has been working with us as a consultant for quite some time. He's a veteran from the Indian Army. So he had a very real reason that he worked with the engineering part of it, and now he wanted to contribute at a very large scale. So now he's working with a very big aerospace firm. So it could be a passion of a certain industry, Ravi, that you could have where you want to contribute using the frameworks of an yeah, it's I am happy to of course drop the name and I will help you connect. And we've got another veteran candidate consultant. He graduated from LBS. So they both will be happy to have a quick chat with you and discuss with you like what could your potential reasons be to go for an MBA, because they both had very personal reasons. They wanted to enter the corporate world, but of course capitalize on the skills that they had developed over 10 to 15 or 20 years in the Indian Army and in the Indian Air Force. And then they wanted to of course utilize that knowledge and skills which were transferable into a certain industry in the corporate world. Or, sometimes people even go on to do a lot of last mile. So one of the candidate of ours ended up working with DHL after been after having been in the Indian Army for 10 to 15 years. I think they take voluntary retirement after that. And then in DHL, he was leading the global operations for the last mile delivery. So you have a lot of, possibilities. We just have to understand what are the basically what are the challenges that are closest to you. So this brings me to the point that especially when you're a veteran, you can really talk about a lot of real world problems. So you've been close to a lot of real world problems and you've seen them, you've challenged yourself to solve them, and you've really led big teams. And that's what business schools really care about. They care about um, how good a leader you are and how can you project yourself in the larger light of things, to be solving a real world problem with your leadership skills. And that's a very very valid transferable skill for any business school. So whatever your real reason are, to be honest, you can be out there and be open about it, as long as it's connecting the dots to why an MBA is a necessity for you to really accomplish that. I
If I,
hope I
if it,
Yeah,
yeah,
Ravi.
if at all, I can just boil it down for you for in a short sentence that because I have been away from, I'm a business graduate. I was working with Bank of America and Ernst and Young for a very short while. So
Yeah,
now when I'm here, I did understand and identify a few gaps in my career in the army, and I want to give it back, like serve the country again, maybe in a better forum to serve larger number of people by providing necessary gear, or maybe get better at logistics or something. But there is a stereotype in most of the, especially, I mean, I can talk openly talk about the Indian market, that once you step outside for an army veteran, it is primarily the domain that they are chosen is for operations, logistics, and HR, which is, I think, I don't fit in that stereotype, and I want to break that stereotype. And I
yeah,
feel that applying to colleges which are slightly US bound
yeah,
is going to make me this thing, because my inclination is slightly towards entrepreneurship. There are
yeah.
very few programs in the Europe which I felt that will satisfy that, and my reason to do a 2 year MBA is because I've been away from the field for a very long
Of
time. I
course.
will take my own time. I would be requiring to do that necessary 3 months of internship that they have to do during the 2 year MBA. So all those things, that's my reason for it. But yes, picking up a college, and like I have my own gaps. I have my own this thing. Like in my undergrad, I had medical issues. I could not perform exceedingly well. I have a decent GRE, so to compensate to that. But I do not understand. And next year is the only deadline next year is the only class that I have to target, because I will be out of army in March, and I don't want to waste a
Okay.
time, and I don't want to have a gap, because and
I
I'm
understand,
targeting for the
Ravi.
first line, and I'm
Yeah,
targeting for the first deadline. I'm just struggling with a lot of essays right now,
yeah.
applying wherever, and
No worries,
like
Ravi.
yeah, because it's like, and I mean, a lot of colleges have been kind enough to give me fee waiver also because of the veteran fraternity. So
Yeah,
that's kind.
yeah, they do. Yeah, yeah. So don't worry about it, Ravi. You and I can have a chat, of course, after this or maybe even tomorrow. And then we can, of course, explore more stories. And I'd be happy to have you connected with all our veteran, community folks, consultants, and candidates, because we work with a lot of veterans. And I am very proud and happy to share that we have a 100% success rate with scholarships for our veteran candidates and oil and gas peeps. So these two aspects, and more than 90% success rate for women candidates to bag scholarships. So just to help you understand, breaking the stereotype is definitely possible. Archana from Indian Air Force, she graduated from Duke Cornell, I think, and she's right now working with Bain as a management consultant. So that is all possible and is happening in today's world. I'll be happy to put you in touch with all the folks that we've
That'll
ever
be really
met with.
kind. I've taken a lot of screen time. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
connect.
no
Otherwise,
worries.
I'll stick around.
All right, so moving on to the next question. Unless somebody has more questions, and you guys can drop it in here, because we'd like to take the session as organically as possible. If not, then I'm happy to take up the next question. How can you show that you're a good fit for a specific MBA program in your essay? Isha, your thoughts are welcome.
So, I really showed my achievements and progression and Bain. I had two promotions, and I also had CFA, and I had other things to show that I was involved in social impact consulting. I had some pro bono consulting experience as well. So it was an rounded experience. Just not like it was not just that I was working at Bain, I was also involved in other activities. So it's really important to show how different you are because diversity really helps. It's not like, Indian MBA where you would have a good CAT score and it becomes easy for you. Even if you have a very good GMAT score, you really need to show how different you are because someone with 750 and who has done a lot of work will will be better placed compared to someone who has 780 but who was just involved in one activity. You need to show how different you are because at the end, even any other company who is hiring you would like to see, um, because if you are not involved in any other activity, it would just show that you'll just be involved in work, and it does not add well to the company's culture also if you're not really involved in other activities. Diversity really helps you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Isha. And like Isha just mentioned, and of course, we've got a question from Sakalp. We're going to take it up in between in a bit. As Isha mentioned, that you could be a 680 and with just one activity and nothing to talk about, your personality may not land you anywhere. So I'm going to talk about two very contrasting examples. We've seen somebody with a 770 GMAT score not getting an acceptance from either of the top European schools, which is LBS and INSEAD EASA or M7s. And we have also seen somebody with a 630 GMAT making it through Kellogg, Wharton, and INSEAD. So depending on, like, of course, your GMAT GRE can be a criteria to not get you eliminated, but it is definitely not a selection criteria. For a selection criteria to make it to a very, a business school and to be a perfect fit for an MBA program, there is one real thing that MBA and Beyond swears by. And this could be a tip that you guys can really follow, even if you're working on your applications by yourself, you're not working with MBA and Beyond. Please go very thorough on the values of a business school. So every school is going to have a few sets of values. There are 3 to 4. If you are naturally inclined towards those values, and if you have enough examples of your strengths and achievements and weaknesses to support those values, you are a natural fit to that business school. So instead of you trying to force yourself into a business school, try to figure out where is your value match with a business school. It becomes more, the possibility of you converting that business school minus your low GPA, your low GMAT or whatever significantly increases. So I would really advise, if there was one piece of advice I had to give all of you how to pick the school, please go drill into the values and then maybe further research onto, you want to do the alumni connect, you want to do the I don't know, attend all the webinars, look at the curriculum, look at the post career statistics, post MBA statistics, so on and so forth. But yeah, a value match is something that can really, personality wise make or break your chances. You really need to see a business school as a personality on its own, and you need to figure out how good a personality match you are. So yeah, okay, we have a couple of questions from the audience, so we're going to go one by one. Sankalp is asking, you mentioned oil and gas sector. Yes, I did. Could you please elaborate on this, like why you mentioned it specifically? Okay, Sankal, it was just for the 100% success rate that we have for certain industries. It is veteran and oil and gas, and that's why I mentioned it. So I hope that answers your question. Mustafa is asking, what if you have no career progression to show? I've had 3 different roles in 3 different companies over the past 7 years, approximately 7 years, but no promotion in any of these. Isha, do you want to talk about this a little bit? Whatever, if because I know
Yeah,
you've had a very different kind of trajectory. What if you have any 2 cents? Otherwise, I'll
but even
jump.
yeah, so I think whenever you're switching also to some other company, you always look for a hike and uh, definitely you would be getting something different from that company. And it's not always important to show progression, but your achievements. So if it's possible to quantify those achievements, I think it really helps you. And you'll be contributing something there in any of the companies. And those contributions should also be backed by the recommendation letters you are getting from the different recommenders. So that would help you, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Just building upon Isha, like she said, that it has to be backed and you can talk about the impact. So I'll just first try to, of course, correlate to the question that how can you show, basically, what do we mean by progression here? So let's say Isha has grown, progressed in an organization. Of course, progression with respect to promotion with respect to progression is the next best step, but you could also be expanding and progressing horizontally. Now, how do you project that in your application? Like Isha very clearly said, you have to talk about your learnings and the impact. Now, the impact can be exponentially projected even if you have horizontally expanded. There are ways to show that. So let's say I'm going to talk about this candidate who actually made it to Kellogg and Booth. He had a lot of zigzags in his profile, and exactly like you mentioned, 7 years of experience, not promoted from IIT, lot of switches, lot of function jumps, lot of domain jumps just to experiment and experience. And in none of the organizations did he stay more than 1.5 years. So his application actually starts with a sentence: chaos is a ladder that only a few can climb. I really like to read his essay out loud, but I won't because we're short on time. And how he starts and how he shows impact in his profile and the impact he's brought in the world, even though it was not a very traditional promotional path that people would take. But, in the end, it's all about how do you tell your story. You are the protagonist. Business schools don't care whether you were horizontally growing or you were vertically growing in an organization, whether you made too many switches, whether you risked it or not. In fact, there are ways to showcase to business schools that you are a good risk taker, so you could potentially be a very good entrepreneur post MBA as well. So there are different ways of showing it because you're a generalist and you're not a specific, like you're not a specialist in a certain domain. You could even be a generalist. So there might be some skill sets that we can talk about, which you might have learned over time, jumping things, companies horizontally. So I hope that answers your question as well, Mustafa. Now we're going to move on to Ariman. Couple of questions. How do you elaborate on why MBA? It's very easy for me to state in 2 sentences exactly why I want to do an MBA, but over the course of 500 words, how do you weave a compelling narrative? That's a very good question. I will repeat what I said in when we started the session. But yes, and second question is, in terms of extracurricular activities, is that something that adds value in an essay, or is that better reserved for the resume? Isha, do you want to maybe first start and then I
Sorry,
will?
I just read the question again.
Yeah.
Is that something that adds value in SEO? No, I think if it's a really important part of your personality and it sets you apart, I think that will really help you. And it's just not limited to one line of your resume. Like it can be a good highlight of your 500 word essay. So tell me about yourself. Tell me something about yourself. Could be one essay, and you can really shine over in that essay where you can show how this extracurricular sets you apart.
Absolutely. So, Araman, I'll first quickly sum up your first question, like how can you elaborate on why MBA? I will just wrap it up in one sentence. You have to specifically know what are the very unique gaps in your profile that only an MBA can help you bridge. Now, this can stem from your weaknesses or this can stem from your failures. And like I gave you examples, on an entrepreneur could have failed to scale a startup and they might have identified the few skill gaps in their profile or framework gaps or knowledge gaps, and that's what they want to bridge. It could also be that you have tried multiple times to switch, let's say, from tech to product management, but you've not been able to because you've identified there is a certain gap that only, and maybe you are not that good a leader and you've only been an individual contributor, while you do have good leadership skills to talk about, but not enough to make you a product manager. So yeah, you can talk about that. So it has to be very specific and unique to you, and you really need to brainstorm with someone, a mentor or a friend or family, who can help you and show you the mirror. Okay, these are your big gaps that an MBA can really help you bridge. So that's to your first point. Second one, extracurricular activities, very, very important, because I understand that most of us, not all of us, most of us here are tonight from India. I know because of the work culture that we are, living or thriving in. I mean, you barely get any time to focus on yourself or, sometimes contributing to the community. So, two aspects of your extracurriculars that are really going to contribute maybe almost 50% of your application are your contribution to the community and the hobbies that you pursue. I won't say that you will be really populating the application 50% with the examples, but yes, the values that you bring to the table, they are all interlinked. So business schools do not see your professional life as very different from your personal life. They really have to make you one whole thing to be pitched to a top business school. So in all honesty, you do need extracurriculars, whether you see it as a part of your life or you see it as an extra burden on yourself. If you really want to get to a top business school, you really need to be engaging elsewhere outside of work. So maybe it's time for you to tell your bosses and start saying no, that okay, now this is my me time and I really need to be doing this on the weekend and I'm not going to answer your emails or whatever. So that's also a trait you guys need to develop if you're applying to a top business school, or later even if you're going to be a good business leader, so you're not really taking people's time from their own time, to get them to work. It's a very important aspect, especially, some of you going to a European business school. I hope you're aware that if you're sending an email to your employee post 6 p.m., Germans can really sue you. So, anyways, jokes apart. Yeah, as long as you're working in a startup, it's a different thing. But because you can really develop a lot of extracurricular stories to tell, even for business schools, it's understandable that when you're an entrepreneur or if you've been working in a thriving startup, they really understand that you may not have time, but apart from those, it's hard for us to pull off a story that you do not have any extracurriculars, and we can't defend that.
Just
So,
a
all right.
quick follow-up on that, Pradeep. So,
Yes, sorry. Hmm.
uh, even the extracurriculars that I have, so uh, I, yeah, I would say it's a part of my life. Like, for example, just one example is that I've been playing guitar for like the last 16 years,
Nice.
but most of it has been in a largely informal setting. I'm not really pursuing
That's
my
okay.
hobbies in terms of in a very formal way, or I have like a here's a portfolio of my work, for example. But yeah, so I wanted to ask like how exactly uh, would I weave that in? Because yes, it's a part of me, but at the same time, I'm not really actively doing anything with it. It's just more for like leisure. So how would I really like sell that to the admissions
Yeah.
committee? Like I do play it, but well, it's not
Yeah.
something I'm doing anything with.
Yeah, yeah. So, Ariman, see, like one, congratulations, you have a hobby which you pursue. First of all, that because some people still are not able to make time or think of that. So that's one thing. There are ways, of course, for projecting it, and maybe not directly to that. Oh, you started a guitar club or a music club, so on and so forth. But yes, of course, even if you're doing it in an informal setting on the weekends somewhere, you could talk about how you could contribute to make the business school music club in a they like contribute to their music community or something like that. They just want to find some connection. I will not know exactly what story you're pitching, but I can talk about this candidate who absolutely loved pottery, and how it linked to the interview question, how do you deal with a lot of stress or when you're under pressure. So she said, I feel like when I use my hands to do something, which is basically pottery, it really like calms me down. And every time I'm put in a position or a project where I'm stressed, this is how I manage my stress. So there could be multiple links, like how this particular aspect of your life could be used. So I wouldn't comment on that because I don't know how it's fitting into your whole story, and that takes a lot of brainstorming. But yeah, having a hobby is something that can really help you accentuate your chances, showcasing in some way you can contribute to either being a good leader, or maybe it could be like your de-stressor, or it could even be something that you can contribute to a business school's music club because they all have it. So just two, three examples I have given you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, Anurag, since you want to unmute yourself, I'm not going to read the question that's next, but have you speak first, and then we can go on to answering Ezzy's question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah. So my question is basically, I'm an urban planner. I have around 5 years of work experience working with an NGO. So we specifically work with international clients and Ministry of India in planning and designing sustainability and climate change projects in India. But
Yeah.
I don't have any corporate experience. So does that matter actually when we
No.
apply for the business schools and
No.
all?
In fact, you are working, just going to comment here because I have my own bias about climate crisis right now that we're going through. And I really push for people going towards sustainability, renewable energy, so on and so forth. In fact, you're coming from an industry which is very much in demand right now at business
Yeah.
schools, climate, energy, and healthcare,
Okay.
because we need more and more leaders to be groomed. And it's okay if you've not had a corporate experience. There are yoga trainers going to top business schools, including in INSEAD, just because they want to start something of their own in the wellness space. So as long as you have a strong reason for why you need an MBA, what are you going to make use of an MBA in your life or to do good to the world, you're pretty ready to go for a business school.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have a
Thank you
small
so much.
question on the same line.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Is that you, SR? Yeah, please go ahead. Can you be louder?
Shruti, I'm
Yeah.
Shruti. Hi.
Okay, Shruti, go on, Shruti.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been loving your sessions. I have to admit that.
Oh, thanks.
Actually, yeah. So unlike corporate, job experiences, there's no certificate or something that can vouch for what we have been doing in the sustainability sector or in NGOs. Though the difference we have made is really high, and we've made a difference and things like that. So how do you explain it? Like,
Yeah. So, see, Shruti, I'll be honest here. Some schools can go really deep above and beyond to do the background checks, while some don't. They can really rely on, an optional essay or an optional recommendation that you may want to provide. So, in case of Anurag, of course, like he can back it up with two big recommendations because that's the space that he's been working in. So, he can have two recommendations come in from anywhere, which is supporting whatever he's saying. So definitely we need some supporting evidence, but not always. So as long as, let's say for Ariman, it is just a hobby, he may not need to use it, as something where he needs to prove it. It is a hobby, it's fine. And it may just fit into expressing his personality with respect to a value match for a respective business school, if we are able to figure that out with him. But in your case, maybe I'm guessing your question is that you potentially worked with an NGO, or maybe you worked with an organization where you don't have a certificate. Is that your question?
yeah, that's right.
Then potentially just push for them to give you a certificate.
Yeah, I've
If you
even
do it
led.
for them, then ideally they should. If it's not a certificate, at least like a letter that they could talk about that, hey, okay, Shruti was working with us for XYZ months, and this is what she led, or this is what she contributed to.
Okay, so a couple of months ago, we ran a tree plantation drive where we planted about 100,000 trees
Mm-hmm.
here in Bangalore. So there's actually I was one of the leading members of the tree plantation drive, but I don't have any supporting documents except for maybe some pictures.
Yeah.
So in that, yeah.
I mean, there are ways. So NYU Stern asks you for 5 pictures of you, like 5, 4, I don't know how many, but that express your personality. So this goes back to the question that candidates were asking extracurriculars, to Ariman's question. There are some schools which go heavy on personality beyond your professional life because they feel your resume is sufficient enough to talk about your professional journey so far. Who's talking about your personality? So Duke's gonna ask you 25 random things about yourself. INSEAD is gonna ask you talk about your personal aspirations and try not to revolve around your professional life at all. NYU Stern is going to ask you send us pictures about your life, which is definitely not work, which project you in your whole, wholesomeness of a personality that you are. So you really need to, some schools ask you blatantly, while others will definitely try to figure out a way to ask you. So yes, guys, your social profiles, your pictures, meaning to life, all of that comes into perspective during this 1 year of writing an MBA application. And I really call this a lot of deep work if you want to dive deep into it. Of course, there are candidates who just want to write 5 applications in 15 days, and it sometimes it works for them because they're just focusing on essays. But if you really want to understand yourself and a good fit of school for you, then I'd say you should ideally be spending half a year to be doing that. I mean, you guys spend like half a year doing GMAT, GRE. Why not do the more creative part instead for the remaining half of the year before the deadlines hit? So yes, personalities matter. And yes, Shruti, you should ask if you don't have a certificate and if you've contributed for something in written, or maybe take pictures. All right.
A
So,
follow-up question, sorry. So,
yeah, Anurag.
sorry.
Okay, quickly, just a minute, and then
Yeah.
we'll,
So,
yeah, go.
whatever Shruti has said, right? The same thing, I have done it in a professional way. But
Yeah.
will just CV be okay, or do I need to show like
Yeah,
mentioning
okay.
it in
Guys,
CV?
okay. This so I'll let me have a word with both of you separately, because we'll go deeper
Sure,
into your
sure, sure.
profile and
Yeah.
not just maybe a minute or two. We'll have a good 30 to 45 minutes conversation to see like how can a story be a fit. Also, let me invite you all to join us for our community on WhatsApp, because we keep hosting a lot of storytelling sessions for MBA. So these kind of questions can be also discussed there. So I'll be happy to have you, join us for the next storytelling session, and we can really put it in the social impact perspective, because we do have a group that's specifically devoted to social impact. So you can join that one also. All right. Okay. Now, let's take up, sorry. Yes, Aman's question. Anurag has already asked. Aman's question. I have a, okay, again, Aman, this is a profile evaluation question. If you're not aware, I'm just going to be sharing my screen quickly. Okay, my screen won't be shared because I have to restart my system. But you can go to MBA and Beyond. I'm dropping the link here. You can set up a profile evaluation call with our profile experts. And all our profile experts come from top business schools, including INSEAD, LBS, Columbia, NYU, Stern, Harvard, Wharton, Stanford. So it's best that you have a 45-minute discussion with them instead of just me giving an overview or a 2 cents here, because at MBA and Beyond, we believe that just the pointers that you've shared are not sufficient for me to give a very in-depth profile evaluation for you. So, all right, moving on. How to decide if it's too soon to pursue an MBA in your career or not the right time? Any examples? I think that's a very valid question, and I'd like to touch upon that. Isha, did you jump off? Are you there? I'll be happy to answer this question. Okay,
Hi,
yeah.
sorry. I think my question was skipped.
Oh, all right. I'm so sorry. And thanks for raising it, Ezzy. I'm just gonna go back to yours. Thanks for calling it out. Not many people did, and there are so many. Okay. Does it make sense to highlight extracurricular entrepreneurship experience outside of my job? I'm in the energy industry and plan to stay here post MBA if entrepreneurship is my long term goal. Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So I'm going to talk about a story as the end that will give you some perspective on how can you link your, even if it's part-time entrepreneurship or something that you were doing as a side hustle, how it contributes to your MBA application. So we once had an MBA candidate who actually went to LBS with a 100% scholarship under Laidlaw, and she basically was working in the tech space with Amazon. However, her long-term passion was entrepreneurship in education. So what she did was for she was working with us for 1.5 year, just building her stories, doing her NGO or whatever experience. She started doing pro bono consulting projects in with the edtech startups, and she also started working with a really big government organization which was taking education to remote areas. And her long term goal was entrepreneurship to take education to remote parts of the world for women in the developing nations or underdeveloped nations. Now, these stories actually contributed to 80% of her application, and 20% was just her, whatever she's done in her professional journey. So, you've raised a very important point. You could be doing something outside of work also. But if that's something that's contributing to your long term goal or midterm goal, you really need to heavily emphasize upon it. And there is no percentage attribution per se that I can say that, okay, you need to talk about it only 20% or 30% or 40%. If it is valuable enough and it's just not adding weight to your application, you should heavily talk about it, and you should not shy away from maybe even, hiding some of your professional parts which are not contributing to your post MBA goal, or maybe just not completely, you can skip completely talking about some of your things in your resume that are not contributing to your post MBA goal. So you can really be that courageous about it, and business schools appreciate it. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, so how to decide if it's soon to pursue? Okay, I'm going to take up RJ's question, which was also the question that he repeated later. So I know we only have 6 minutes. First of all, I may not be able to answer or address all of your questions. However, you have my email address. You can share your question with me. Um, I'm happy to either answer or reply to that email, or we can get on a call sometime maybe next week or on the weekend, since you're targeting round two. So I'm assuming you're not really in a rush to start ASAP, but yeah, we can have a conversation over the span of 1 or 2 weeks next week. In the next weeks. All right. How to decide if it's soon to pursue an MBA in your career or not? Any examples? So that's RJ, that's purely for all of us to decide. So, okay, I am going to give you examples of me and my co-founder here. And I like to talk in my webinars through context. So I always had a GRE score and then a GMAT score. And I don't know how many of you know, but I have branched out from Harvard Medical School into entrepreneurship. I had a calling to go for an MBA twice, but I never went for an MBA. While my co-founder, of course, he was an entrepreneur even before going for an MBA, and he had a very strong calling for his MBA. And just before his GMAT score was going to expire, he applied to INSEAD and he went to INSEAD because he knew he needed a cushion to always fall back on if things go south in the entrepreneurial journey. While for me, I was always able to accomplish that I wanted to do in my life, whether it was moving geographies, moving countries, different roles, different domains, or whatever, without going for an MBA. So I never really felt the need for that. So it's going to be very personal to you, because MBA is an, we have to be mindful here. Of course, I'm an admissions consultant, but I will still always question you guys. Why do you want to put in so much of money into an MBA? Imagine if you had $100,000, if you could do something else about it. So I will always ask myself that question, even today, if I had to put in that kind of money. So RJ, you have to answer for yourself. Why do you need it? If it's a definite necessity, and if you know your life will be, roadblocked if you don't go for an MBA, then yes, going for an MBA is an answer for you. And why now? um, you need to be, of course, prepared financially, mentally, that okay, now I know what are the specific gaps in my profile, and then I'm going for an MBA. So instead of fitting MBA in your journey, by just making up something, you hear your calling that okay, now I'm not able to progress more because I don't have an MBA. That's your answer.
Yeah, hi Vaidi.
Yes,
Can I ask
Arush,
my
please.
question?
Yes,
Yeah,
please
so
go.
I've just posted in chat as well 2 times. But so
Sorry about that.
no
I'm only
worries, no
one
worries,
human. I wish I could,
no
I
worries,
could,
no
but
worries.
yeah, go ahead, Arush. Ask me your question.
So actually, I'm having 5 year experience in Big Four, and my promotion are well timed. And so I'm just aiming for Indian MBA programs. And so, can you just brief me some points like how can I start with the how why MBA essays, like some points, some brief points. Maybe I can just post that I can have a call with you one on one with your team.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to repeat what I started with. You start with your goals, what you really want to accomplish after an MBA. And if you guys want to document, you can. Try to break down your goals into short term, long term, and what is the opportunity. Now, in short term, there are going to be three aspects of it: a domain switch, industry switch, sorry, domain slash function, industry, and then lastly, geography. Now, in the most people want to go for these switches. It's never advised that you make all three switches for your, like why you need an MBA. You should stick to maximum of two, and if it's one, it's amazing. So think about your goals. Then you think about your what are your strengths that are connecting to your goals. If you have, of course, sufficient strengths, that's amazing. If there's some strengths that you need to have which are missing, which can MBA can help you have, then put those points together that MBA can help me develop these strengths. Then talk about your weaknesses. Think about what are the big weaknesses in your profile that can MBA is basically something that can help you bridge. Think about your failures and think about the, larger achievements that you've had in life which can contribute to the MBA, to your post MBA goals with an MBA. So every time you're putting something together, try to identify a gap in your profile that an MBA can help you bridge. It can be through strengths, through weaknesses, through failures, through achievements, whatever. Or it could be something that can take you a notch above, because in case of strengths and achievements, it may not be a gap. In case of weakness and failures, it's going to be a gap. So when you're populating all of this, you will yourself arrive at an answer that, okay, an MBA is making sense and it is very unique to you. So you're not going to be putting a lot of effort into making up an answer. I hope I have answered that question for you, Arushi.
Absolutely. Indeed. Indeed.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so it's 6:30 for me, and yeah, you guys are in India potentially. So we are wrapping it up. But thanks for being such a nice audience, and I really enjoyed today's session. I hope you've enjoyed it too. I hope to see you on the community more often, and then we're going to be organizing more sessions. Happy to have you there, and looking forward to get on one-on-one calls with you if you guys need me to be. All right. Thank you. Have a nice day, evening, good night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye bye.